Imagine a 15-year-old girl vanishing, and weeks later her body is discovered inside a Tesla linked to one of the music industry's rising stars. The world thought he was harmless, but the truth? It's darker than anyone could have imagined. What if I told you the same singer who built his image on faith and heartbreak is now at the center of a chilling murder investigation? A Tesla, a hidden body, and a secret relationship that changes everything. She was only 15. Loved Hello Kitty, dreamed like any teenager, but her final birthday ended in tragedy. And the man tied to her death? A celebrity millions trusted. This is the story that shattered that trust forever. A matching tattoo. Secret messages. Lyrics that sound more like confessions. Was this all hidden in plain sight? Tonight, we unravel how a chart-topping artist's mask came crashing down. When the first headlines hit, people were stunned. A body had been discovered inside a car linked to David. It had been there for weeks, left to decay until it was nearly unrecognizable. At first, no one wanted to believe the whispers. Could this really be his girlfriend? Could David, the same kid who once streamed Fortnite and seemed harmless, be involved in something so dark? But the evidence started stacking up. Investigators found his driver's license inside that very Tesla. The connection was impossible to ignore. The question shifted from if he was involved to why, and why it took so long for the truth to surface. The morning that changed everything. September 8, 2025. Workers at the Hollywood tow yard expected another routine day. Instead, a smell hit them that they would never forget. This wasn't old food or trash. It was the unmistakable stench of death. When they opened the trunk of the abandoned Tesla, the reality was horrific. A body wrapped in plastic, broken down by time and heat. Later, the coroner identified her as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was just a kid, so young that dental records and a tattoo had to be used to confirm her identity. For her family, it was the nightmare ending to more than a year of searching. The shocking connection. This wasn't just any car. The Tesla belonged to David Anthony Burke, the rising star known simply as David. He had gone from basement gamer to chart-topping artist, selling an image of faith, heartbreak, and wholesome charm. Behind that image, something far darker was unfolding. The car had been sitting around the Hollywood Hills for nearly 3 weeks before it was towed. Neighbors noticed it being moved from one spot to another, almost like someone was trying to keep it hidden in plain sight. Finally, on September 5th, it was hauled to the tow yard. 3 days later, Celeste was found. Who was Celeste? Celeste had just turned 15 the day before her body was discovered. She never got to celebrate that birthday. She loved Hello Kitty, carried the same dreams as any teenager, and had struggled with going missing several times since 2024. Her family had been desperate for answers. Instead, they got tragedy. The response that fueled outrage. What truly pushed the public over the edge wasn't just the horrifying discovery of Celeste's body, it was how David and his team chose to respond in the aftermath. To many, the tragedy demanded silence, reflection, and accountability. Instead, what they witnessed felt cold, detached, and almost mocking. His management released a short, carefully worded statement saying David was cooperating with authorities. On the surface, it sounded professional, but the words rang hollow. There was no acknowledgement of Celeste, no condolences for her grieving family, not even a sign of remorse. It was the kind of message designed to protect an image, not confront a crime. What made matters worse was David's behavior. While news of the case spread across headlines, he carried on with his tour schedule as though nothing had happened. Just a day after Celeste's body was found in his Tesla, David was back on stage under bright lights, tossing t-shirts and signed posters into the screaming crowd. Fans who had once idolized him now looked at those same gestures in disgust. What once felt like connection suddenly looked like arrogance. For many, it was a slap in the face. The anger wasn't only about optics, it was about humanity. People couldn't understand how someone even remotely connected to such a tragedy could continue entertaining, singing, and selling tickets. It felt like he was trying to outshine the scandal with music, as though a performance could erase the weight of what had happened. Public outrage erupts. Social media amplified the fury. Clips of David smiling on stage went viral, side by side with breaking news headlines about Celeste's death. Hashtags demanding his arrest surged across platforms. Even those who had never heard of him before were suddenly invested, shocked by the contrast between the unfolding investigation and his seemingly carefree performances. Comment sections filled with outrage. He's on tour while her family plans a funeral. Cooperating? That's not enough. Why is he still free? Imagine being her parents and seeing this. Every post he made, Every appearance, every photo from his shows was dissected and criticized. His music videos were flooded with comments calling him a predator, a liar, a murderer. What once drew praise now attracted only anger. The industry turns away. Behind the scenes, the backlash spread into the music industry. Within days, festival organizers began quietly removing his name from lineups. Promoters canceled contracts. International shows were scrapped. The Grammy Museum deleted his upcoming appearance from its calendar without explanation. Brands and sponsors that once wanted his face tied to their products suddenly went silent, pulling deals to avoid the fallout. In a cruel twist, while his professional world was collapsing, his streaming numbers spiked. Millions of people, horrified and curious, went back to his catalog, replaying songs with new ears. Lyrics that once sounded like heartbreak now seemed like hidden confessions. Fans picked apart every line, every verse, looking for clues. His track Romantic Homicide saw a surge in plays, even as listeners admitted they now heard it differently, less like art, more like evidence. The fans divide. At first, there were still those who defended him. Some insisted that until he was officially charged, he was innocent. Others clung to the belief that the media was twisting the story, that the internet had jumped to conclusions. If he was guilty, they argued, he wouldn't be allowed to perform. But as days passed, even loyal fans began questioning their support. The weight of evidence, the silence from his team about Celeste, and the tone deafness of his performances chipped away at the last bits of loyalty. Online communities that once celebrated his music turned into forums of grief, betrayal, and anger. Prominent influencers who had previously spoken in his defense began walking back their words. Streamers who once hyped him unfollowed his accounts. Other musicians distanced themselves, quietly unfriending and unfollowing him across platforms. The silence from his peers spoke louder than words. It showed just how toxic his presence had become. The human cost. Meanwhile, in Lake Elsinore, Celeste's family and community were left to mourn. While David toured, they were planning vigils, raising money for funeral costs, and facing the crushing reality that their daughter's life had ended in a nightmare. For them, the sight of David smiling and throwing merchandise into crowds was unbearable. It wasn't just disrespectful, it was re-traumatizing. To see the man tied to their daughter's death treated like a rock star instead of a suspect deepened the wound. Community leaders, activists, and grieving neighbors called out the imbalance. They asked why David was allowed to carry on while Celeste's family faced such devastation. The more he appeared on stage, the more it felt like a system protecting the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. The image crumbles. In the end, David's decision to continue performing may have been the greatest miscalculation of his career. Instead of proving strength or innocence, it painted him as someone unbothered by the loss of life connected to him. Every lyric he sang, every item he tossed into the crowd, became fuel for outrage. The short, lifeless statement from his team couldn't shield him. The shows couldn't distract people. The image he had spent years building, faith-driven, relatable, vulnerable, was gone. What remained was a portrait of detachment, a man whose stage lights seemed brighter than his conscience. And as the investigation deepened, one thing became painfully clear: the world would not forgive the way he chose to keep singing while Celeste's family cried. Soon, the industry responded. Major brands cut ties. His record label froze his projects. Collaborators erased songs with his name attached. When the money dries up that fast, it usually means something serious is lurking in the shadows. Too close for comfort. The geography only made things more suspicious. That Tesla wasn't abandoned across town. It was left near the very house in the Hollywood Hills where David had been staying. On top of that, photos later surfaced placing him in Lake Elsinore, not far from where Celeste herself was from. Despite this, police moved cautiously. The LAPD homicide unit took over, but instead of rushing forward, they held back, saying the cause of death was pending further tests. To many, it felt like the case wasn't being taken seriously enough, especially compared to how fast things move when victims come from wealthy, privileged backgrounds. The cracks in his image. Fans were torn. David wasn't just a singer, he was marketed as a role model, a clean-cut kid who talked about faith and chasing dreams. To see his name linked to something so horrific broke people's trust. But those who understand how predators operate weren't surprised. The ones who seem the most innocent are often hiding the darkest truths. That clean image? Sometimes it's just camouflage. As social media filled with theories, one reality became clear. This wasn't the story of a random car or a celebrity scandal. It was about a young girl who never got the chance to grow up and the mask of innocence that may have hidden a predator in plain sight. Sometimes real life turns out darker than any movie script. What began as an ordinary morning at a tow yard quickly unraveled into a nightmare that revealed years of predatory behavior hidden behind a polished public image. Suddenly, the entertainment world was on edge, realizing this case wasn't just about one artist. It was about the ugly truths of fame, power, and exploitation. The first chilling clue came from Celeste's mother. Speaking to TMZ, she explained how her daughter had a small SHHH tattoo on her right index finger. Investigators confirmed the remains in the Tesla had that same tattoo. But the twist? David had an identical tattoo in the exact same spot. Normally, fans copy artists, but in this context, the connection felt disturbingly intimate. Then came the real shocker. Celeste's mom revealed her daughter had been dating a man named David before she disappeared. This wasn't a simple case of admiration or a fangirl crush. It was a relationship between a teenager barely past childhood and a grown man with money, fame, and influence. Reports suggest David first made contact with Celeste when she was only 11 or 12, likely through online gaming platforms like Roblox. Teachers even recalled her telling classmates she had run away to be with him, only for police to bring her home, until she vanished again in April 2024. Think about that age gap. David was 17 or 18. Celeste was barely a preteen. That wasn't just inappropriate, it was illegal, predatory, and should have been stopped long before tragedy struck. Online sleuths uncovered even more damning digital evidence. Screenshots from David's Discord server showed conversations dating back to 2022, where he allegedly discussed his relationship with Celeste. Some messages suggested he instructed moderators to delete incriminating chats, proof he knew exactly how wrong it all was. Photos also surfaced. Many showed David with a girl whose face was conveniently hidden or turned away, as if he didn't want people to know she was underage. In one especially disturbing picture, the two appeared to wear matching outfits and flaunted their matching tattoos, almost like a couple posing proudly for the world, except one half of that couple was still a child. Geography tied the story together in unsettling ways. A photo placed David in a parking lot just minutes from Celeste's home in Lake Elsinore, far from his luxury lifestyle in Los Angeles. Why would a rising star hang around her small hometown unless he was there for her? The most haunting evidence, though, came from David's own music. In December 2023, an unreleased track titled Celeste leaked online. Lyrics described a girl with a tattoo, her presence lingering like cigarette smoke, and an obsession he couldn't let go of. Even more chilling, his breakout hit Romantic Homicide dropped on September 7th, the day of Celeste's birthday. Fans once thought the lyrics were about heartbreak, but with new context, in the back of my mind, you died, and I didn't even regret it, they sounded more like a confession. People in the LA music scene admitted they had seen David with a girl they believed was 19, supposedly a college student. In reality, it was Celeste, still in middle school, using fake IDs to slip into clubs and concerts. David had allegedly created an entire system to mask her real age and keep her close. Private investigators suggested Celeste may have died from an overdose. If that's true, David's choice not to call for help but instead to hide her body still made him directly responsible. Negligence became complicity. The last heartbreaking piece came from her family. Celeste's brother revealed that the final time they saw her alive, she was leaving to watch a movie with David in the same black Tesla where her body would later be found. This wasn't just a scandal about one artist. It was the collapse of an illusion, the clean, faith-filled image of a young star hiding a pattern of grooming, secrecy, and abuse. And as the investigation deepened, the world was forced to confront how easily power and fame can be used as weapons against the most vulnerable. As the evidence kept piling up, the picture became impossible to ignore. The matching tattoos, the hidden relationship, the suspicious locations, the lyrics that sounded like confessions. And finally, the discovery of Celeste's body in David's car. Piece by piece, it became clear this wasn't coincidence. It was a disturbing pattern years in the making. By the time law enforcement fully stepped in, the public had already connected many of the dots themselves. Pressure from the community was loud and relentless, and investigators could no longer drag their feet. The raid on David's Hollywood Hills home. On September 17, 2025, LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division raided the luxury mansion David had been renting for $20,000 a month. the house sat just around the corner from where his abandoned Tesla had been found. For hours, detectives searched the property, leaving with electronics, computers, and multiple evidence bags. They even tested for blood evidence that could link the home directly to Celeste's murder. The raid raised questions about timing. Why did it take over a week after Celeste's body was discovered for police to move on David? Critics argued that his celebrity status had bought him time to keep touring and possibly destroy evidence. The community's response. While investigators were, Celeste's hometown of Lake Elsinore mourned. Vigils were held, neighbors demanded justice, and social media campaigns under #JusticeForCeleste spread worldwide. The community refused to let the case fade into silence. At the same time, David's music career began collapsing. Festivals pulled him from their lineups. His US and European tours were canceled. The Grammy Museum erased his scheduled appearance. Brands cut ties overnight. Yet, in a grim irony, his streaming numbers spiked as listeners revisited songs like Romantic Homicide, hearing his lyrics in a new, sinister light. Shifting public opinion. At first, some fans defended David, insisting he couldn't be guilty. He performed the next day, they argued. If he was a suspect, police would have arrested him. But as more evidence surfaced, even his most loyal supporters began to step back. Streamer Jason Lewine, who had publicly defended David, retracted his statements and unfollowed him. Other influencers and celebrities distanced themselves too, showing how fast the tide of public opinion was turning. Disturbing new revelations. Then came details that made the case even darker. Investigators uncovered messages suggesting Celeste may have been pregnant in 2024, with a due date of March 2025. If true, that pregnancy could have been a motive for silencing her, as it would have exposed the illegal relationship once and for all. Photos and security footage kept surfacing, showing David and Celeste together over the years. Witnesses placed them side by side. Private messages hinted at grooming that stretched back to when she was barely 11 or 12. Even David's own music became part of the evidence. His 2022 track Decide contained the chilling lyric, "Save your tears, 7 years." Fans now believed it referred to the years it would take for Celeste to reach legal age. His unreleased song Celeste described details only someone close to her could know. And his concerts, which once seemed edgy, now looked like something else entirely, performances laced with funeral imagery, as if he were flaunting his crimes in plain sight. A family's grief. By October, Celeste's body was finally released to her family for burial. They launched a GoFundMe campaign to cover funeral expenses while struggling with the unimaginable loss of their daughter. Meanwhile, David disappeared from public view. Reports claimed he was still cooperating through his lawyers, but no arrest had yet been made. Legal experts explained that prosecutors were waiting on full autopsy and toxicology reports before filing the most serious charges. That process could take months. The bigger picture. What began as a shocking discovery in a tow yard had become one of the most disturbing scandals in recent entertainment history. This wasn't just about one crime. It revealed a system of grooming, manipulation, and exploitation that had gone unchecked for years. David's carefully built image as a wholesome, faith-driven artist was gone. The Tesla containing Celeste's remains wasn't just a crime scene. It was proof of a double life, the smiling public figure versus the predator hiding in plain sight. The legal case will take time, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict has already been delivered. For Celeste, the community won't stop demanding justice. And for David, the mask has been ripped away.